Hello, my friends. So, you may recall that I reviewed Poser 14 approximately November, December of 2025. And one of the things that I said about it was that the cloth room had been removed. And for me and many, many other people, that meant that it was absolutely unusable. I use cloth fairly frequently, and there's no way that I was willing to give that up, especially as um, Bondware only reduced the price by $25 to compensate. Um, as they suggested they might, they actually have reintroduced cloth now, but it's a very, very different picture to what it was before. So, Poser cloth now, I'm in the Bondware website, and you'll see here all of the recent threads for Poser 14, and Poser cloth has got 190 posts, and that's because it's really hard to use. And even now, after what it's released in February, and now we're in May, and people still really don't know how to use it satisfactorily. Um, but I will just say at this point that it is exactly what I said it was. At the time when I reviewed 2014, I suggested that the reason that they had removed cloth is because they were changing the underlying technology, and that was exactly what they did. And they reintroduced cloth. It's not the cloth room anymore. It's a cloth room um, within the bullet physics, and you reach bullet physics by going into window, and then there's bullet physics in there at the bottom. So what's bullet physics? It's a physics simulation engine for soft body objects to deform against each other. So you could use it for a butt sitting on a chair, you could use it for a football being kicked, you could use it for a tablecloth draping over a table, and you can now use it for clothes. Now I'm in Poser 2013 because I'm damned if I'm going to spend $100 upgrade to get an inferior version of cloth, but it is possible that by including cloth into bullet physics, so the cloth now uses, rather than using a completely separate engine, it now uses the bullet physics engine. It is possible that the cloth actually is more versatile than it was. For example, in bullet physics, there's a property called inflate, which this internal pressure, sorry, not inflate, which as it sounds, imagine if you've got a beach ball and it has no internal pressure, it lands on the floor, it's all just useless, yeah, and kind of deflated. But if it has internal pressure, depending on the amount, it will tend to try and resume its former shape. And you could use that on clothes to give certain clothing items a bit more life, if you like. I'm not sure that it's worth it. And judging by the fact there's 190 comments, most of them asking how to use it, and many of them complaining that it's still useless, it suggests to me it was a price too high. I think bullet physics is harder to use than cloth. But if we just have a look, you'll see that Bondware has actually done a tutorial on how to set up the cloth, which kind of makes it not too difficult to use. As you can see, it's a bit more complicated, not massively, but some. So I'm just going to quickly show you bullet physics just so as you can get an idea. So here's the bullet physics engine, and before I use it, I'm just going to load a high-res ball, which is there, and I'm just going to increase the scale of that. Control D to drop it to the ground, hopefully. Let me have a look. Control D or D. No, okay, not okay. Let's go back to there. I guess I haven't set up my keys. Usually I have Control D means drop to ground. Right, let me just try that again. Ball, Control D. Oh, there we go. Okay, it wasn't selected. Then I'm going to choose a high res plane. So it's the usual tablecloth demonstration basically. So high res square, and I'm going to expand the size of that so it's big enough to drape over the ball. So scale, whoop, 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 and I'm going to lift that above that because we always want things to fall onto things so that they can drape. Then I'm going to go into bullet physics and I'm just going to create a new simulation. So you can consider this to be a bullet physics tutorial, but a very, very simple one. And I'm just going to create that, and I'm going to call that cloth. And what I want to do now is I want to add objects to the simulation. So there's only 3 possible objects. There's the floor, there's the ball, and there's the cloth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go objects, and we've got 3 different modes for simulating within bullet physics. We've got choreographed, rigid dynamic, and soft dynamic. So for now, I'm just going to do, I could do rigid dynamic for the ball and the ground. If I do choreographed, however, the ball can move. With rigid dynamic, they stay where they are. And then I just do soft dynamic, and I'm going to add the cloth plane to that. And hopefully, if I just do live simulation, oh my goodness, okay. I believe I must have, okay, let's go to my objects, rigid dynamic. Okay, I'm going to change those to choreographed. Ground and ball. Okay, clear simulation, live simulation, there we go. Okay, so for some reason that's not interacting, so let's just change that again. So we've got choreographed ground, choreographed ball, soft dynamic cloth plane. Reset that, make sure that's well above before we start. Live simulation. Okay, so that's not interacting with that. That's rather annoying. Okay, it seems to be, maybe it's the ball I chose. Let me take this ball out and bring a different ball in. Maybe there's too many polygons or something stupid, right? So I'll just do ball, and I'll increase the size of that, and I'll do I'll just turn the subdivision levels up 1 to smooth it out a bit. Then I'll clear the simulation, objects, ball, that's going to be a choreographed, and then I'm going to do live simulation again. Oh, there we go. So that's very strange. So it didn't like the high res ball. Obviously there were too many polygons or something. Don't get it? Annoying. Right, so you'll see that what that's done, it simulated the cloth draping here. This could just as easily be a foot kicking a soccer ball, and then the soccer ball deforms around the foot and then goes pinging off into space. But you'll see there's these kind of blistering patterns, or these weird patterns. Sometimes you used to get that with cloth, but you get it all the time in bullet physics. And there is a solution to that, is to take your cloth that you're simulating. So I'll just do clear again. Take your cloth and just increase the subdiv levels a couple of times. And what that will do, if I just show you that in wireframe. So subdivision is, let me see, am I in frame 1? Yep, frame 1 of 30. Subdivision is, so this is the default here. That's how high the resolution is now. And each time I move it 1 set across, it quadruples the resolution like that. So I'll just do 2. And just go back down to that view where you can see what's going on, and turn that back to, oops, a daisy, wrong user interface. Oh, actually, that doesn't matter. Okay. And I'll make sure I'm in the correct room, which I'm not. And just clear and live simulation. There you go. Okay. And make sure that that's texture shaded, and you can see now that's got rid of most of the blisters, but it does cast some weird shadows. So let's just turn live sim off and see how that looks if we actually give it a render. So we'll do a calculate simulation. So this is maybe if I was going to use if I was going to do it as part of an animation or a final render. Let's go to that last frame. You'll see that looks lovely and smooth. Those weird jaggy things are missing now. I'll just shut the bullet physics down. And excuse me, I'll just give it a quick render. Okay, for some reason it's doing a kernel refresh. I'll be back in a second when that's done, if it doesn't happen really quickly. Okay, I don't know what happened there, but for some reason it went into that um, compiling thing, and it just stuck there for ages and ages, and there was no reason because I had just rendered anyway. So here's the um, here's the rendered image in low resolution. Here you go. Looks doing the bloody render kernels again. Um, I'm going to cancel that. I don't know why it's stuck in this mode where it wants to keep doing that. But as you can see, even on this low quality render, those kind of bubbles and imperfections and shadow artifacts have disappeared. And what we have is a beautiful, smooth draped cloth. However, when it comes to clothing in the bullet physics room, the challenge is, as I understand it, that it's a lot harder to get it to interact with human figures. And one of the challenges is the standoff distance. Now, if this ever gives me control again, which it doesn't seem to want to do, but the distance that whenever you set up a cloth simulation or bullet physics simulation, you set the distance from the surface that the simulated object will go to. So if you imagine my hand is the ball and this is a cloth, the distance when I drape there is a value that I can set. So here, if you can see, I'm, a few centimeters. Here, I'm skin tight to it, and that distance makes all the difference, especially when it comes to clothing, because if it's too close you get poked through, and if it's too far you get cloth interactions with itself, and you also get, there we go, I've got control now. So let's go and get that back, and I can show you the settings in the bullet physics. So it's this option, the collision margin, and if it's too far away, what you get is unrealistic movement. So it follows. Supposing this is a leg and you've got a piece of cloth going with it. If it's too far away, it looks like the cloth is preceding the object which is moving it. And that appears to be one of the issues that people are having. And the other, as I said, is this blistering issue. So it seems to me that bullet physics, the benefit of using bullet physics is that it unifies two similar systems. This physics engine, if you like, for creating physics for hard and soft bodies, and you can choreograph. So, for example, with a fixed body, supposing my hand is the ball. I don't know if you can see that. If my hand is the ball, if this is a fixed body, whatever will interact against it, but this ball will never move. But with a choreographed body, I can animate that separately. So supposing I drape a cloth onto this will animate as I move. And that's what you're going to need if you're doing clothing animation. And then that's when things become a bit more difficult. Now, one of the other problems that everybody has complained about is that many of the cloth item clothing in the Bondware store, Renderosity, come pre-rigged. So when you buy the clothing, they have the correct settings, the correct cloth room settings, so that they will, when you run the cloth simulation or the animation cloth simulation, everything just works perfectly. And when I say works perfectly, for example, here we've got settings that talks about the gravity, the damping, the collision margins, that sort of thing, and that. Or even here, for example, the stiffness, the friction, the stiffness. If you think of silk, very, very soft and floppy, that's soft, floppy silk. And then if you compare that to, say, burlap, a sack material, stiffer, leather, much stiffer still. And so leather moves very, very bending, a very little bending here. Silk, lots of bending. I hope this is coming across on the camera. And that was all nicely set out in the cloth simulation. And in here, somewhat more complicated from what I'm understanding. But the thing is that, so far as I can see, when you buy an item of clothing which has those settings pre-applied, they work fine in the cloth simulation, but they are not rigged for the bullet physics simulation. So we get a situation like you did with Daz Studio. When Daz Studio started doing iRay, even though it was a quantum leap in render realism, going from a biased render to a physically based render material. So it was like the difference between drawing a texture and simulating a real world texture. It was that much better quality. There was a while when items shipped that didn't have iRay textures, or even now that had both, and it's a lot more work for the vendor. But the trouble is there are lots and lots of products in the Bondware store Renderosity which are pre-rigged for the cloth room, but it's going to be unreasonable to expect those vendors to go back and now rig them for the bullet physics, if you can even do that. And I'm not sure that you can. I'm not sure that you can sell an item of clothing that is saved, ready to apply bullet physics. You know, that it already has the parameters attached to it, if you know what I mean. So for example, when you bought a pair of trousers for the cloth room, it might say, this is how flexible it is, this is how much friction it applies, this is how heavy it is. And then you just apply it to any figure and it applies those parameters. And I'm not sure if you can save bullet physics cloth with those parameters pre-saved. That's something that I'm going to have to look into at some point, but really leery about buying Poser 14 because I don't really want to pay for something that I don't like the features it has. But I will just say that unifying two physics systems into one, so you only have to learn one system, has its benefits, and we'll see how that translates into real world art, or even better real world animation. I'm glad that they've reintroduced cloth of a sort, but it's not a simple solution. And on that note, I think I've kind of covered the basics so far as I understand them. If you know anything better, please post it in the comments. I will put the link for this usage tutorial, this Bondware usage tutorial. And I also saw a really good tutorial on the bullet physics, which I forgot to reference here, but I will put a link in the doobly-doo underneath as well. So hope you found that interesting, my friends. You have a fantastic week, and I will speak to you again soon.